Hello everyone. Today we are here to listen this talk on design-based research, bridging research and practice of Mr. Shams Duha. Please.
Good morning, everyone. So it's an honor and pleasure to be here to present my talk on design-based research, bridging research and practice. I'd like to thank Faculty of Political Sciences for organizing that. So I have a jam-packed session planned, but I will see that how we'll be doing after half an hour, and then I'll adjust my schedule. So we'll have an introduction first, so that I have an idea of who you are and which discipline you are working on. And then we'll discuss some brainstorming questions, and that will give you an idea about DBR. And then probably you'll get a feel after the questions that you are already doing these things, but probably you are not familiar with the concept yet. And then we'll review the basics of DBR. I will present some theoretical constructs, and then we'll give some ideas on that. And then I will share a DBR example that you're currently doing at your university, so that will help you to see the example and you'll see the application of the theory through an example. And then we'll do a group work, and then probably one or two of you can present the group work so that we can learn from each other. And then there are the question and answer session. So directly move to introduction. So as our introducer said that my name is Shams, so I'm a PhD student in Learning Design and Technology at Purdue University. So my research interests are online learning environment, micro-learning, social media and education, and also design-based research. So can we start from here, sir? Just a quick introduction.
Okay.
Yeah.
Introduce myself?
Yeah, just your name and the faculty, so that I have an idea.
Yeah, my name is Türkmen Göksel. I'm the vice dean of this faculty. Actually, I'm a professor of economics.
Well, my name is Taylan Bali. Nice to meet you. Nice to welcome you here. I'm from this faculty, from the Political Science Faculty of the University of Ankara. And I'm an economist myself. We are from the same department. And besides, my own research is on development and the distribution in the world.
Great, thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Mohammad from Department of Politics and Economics in this faculty. My research area is mostly about migration and transnational studies.
Okay.
My name is Özlem Alçakan. I'm working in this faculty and also a PhD candidate at Administrative Science.
Okay, great.
Hi, I'm Alper Özer. I'm in this faculty also. My major is marketing.
Great.
Hi, Mehmet Özer. My name is Mehmet Özer. I'm a PhD candidate in business administration. My research interest is marketing, and I'm studying with Mr. Alper Özer about marketing, learning, and consumer behavior.
Great, thank you.
My name is Negin Bavidi, PhD of Human Rights. I study my PhD in Human Rights, and the domain of my study and my research is immigration.
Immigration. Great, thank you.
Hi, my name is İrfan Ünal. I am counselor at the Ministry of Culture and Tourism and very interested in design management projects, etc. So,
Okay, design. So there's a common thing here. Yeah.
My name is Fezal Sincar Şortoğlu. I am working at North European Research Center. I am from Political Science and Public Administration department. I am working on European Union.
Great, thank you.
My name is Zafer Kıyan from Faculty of Communication. My research field is the political economy of communication and social media as well.
Oh, great. Yeah, social media is one of mine. Especially I'm looking at how we can use social media for education.
I'm Onur Koçnut. I'm from the Faculty of Political Sciences and responsible for international relations.
Great.
I'm Kemal Doğan from the Bangladesh University, Ankara. I'm the assistant of His Excellency Masud Mana in that school.
Thank you.
My name is Akın Süperi. I am also a member of this faculty. My research area is generally international finance and environmental economics.
Right? Excellent.
This is Ambassador Masood Mannan. Since 2020, I'm the Bangladesh Ambassador to the Republic of Turkey. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I usually start my workshop with a quote. So I'm presenting a quote by Jeffries that was from 1955, but still very relevant to education. So it is one thing to state the chief aim of education. It is quite another thing to pursue this aim in a world which denies the principles on which it rests. And this is so true for educational areas, because there are just so many variables here, right? In a classroom, all of your students are different. Even the same student is different at different times in a classroom. So you cannot really generalize research findings some of the times, and that makes educational research one of the challenging researches of all time, if you consider that fact. So I would like to challenge you first. Think about one research finding that has made a difference in your educational practice. Maybe it can be a theory, it can be a principle, or it can be a framework. Do you follow a framework regularly in your teaching practices? I know that many of you are teaching, many of you are probably researcher, but in your teaching or research practices, a framework or principle that you regularly follow. I'm just trying to see if research translates into practice. That's the goal of research, right? Why people are doing research? Because we want to see that reflected in our practices. So when you do your research teaching practices, do you follow a theory or practice regularly? Okay, so we'll come to that. So some brainstorming questions, as I have told you. So what is design? What words come to you when you think of the word design? It can be one word answer. Maybe a roadmap.
It's basically the blueprints that you
The
follow during the
blueprints,
research.
yes.
Change a fine way to solve problems, actually. I'm
Changing.
a practitioner, and so that's why.
Solving problems. It's a
So-
problem-solving map.
Yeah.
Yeah. What other words come to your mind?
Organizing the ideas.
Organizing the ideas, collecting the ideas, and then organizing it.
Perhaps building.
Craft building?
Building.
Building, yes. Building is design. So my next question is, have you designed an educational product? I think there is a technical problem going on here. Yeah, maybe now it's better. Yeah. Have you designed an educational product? A lesson plan, a course, an intervention? Of course you do, right? As part of your teaching practices, as part of your research practices, administrative practices. So what factors or principles do you consider when you design something? Can you come up with one or two factors that you consider when you design something? Yeah.
Well, the first thing I consider is the cognitive abilities and the beforehand preparation of my students.
Right. So you think about your students, your target students, their abilities, their age, maybe their goals. What other factors do you consider? Okay, I'll try to move it. Yeah, I try to reach out softly. Okay. So target students is one of the factors that you consider. What other factors or principles do you consider when you design something? Maybe you think about specific theories, specific frameworks, specific applications when you design something. So how do you evaluate your design? You design something, then you implement that. Then probably you will not stop there, right? You will evaluate that for improvement, for refinement. So how do you evaluate your design?
Feedback from the students.
Yeah, outcomes.
You get feedback from students, maybe informal and formal. Maybe you observe your students, maybe you collect qualitative and quantitative data, and then probably you get formative data, summative data. All these data help you to refine your design. So that's one of the basis of design theories, that you need to continually refine your designs. So have you modified your design based on your evaluation? And have you implemented the modified design to see if it has a better impact? Have you re-evaluated and re-implemented? And I know that you also do these things. It's a continuous refinement of designs.
Well, actually, we had to do it, because of the pandemics.
Because of the pandemic, right?
If we haven't done it before.
Because you
we had to
didn't do it before. Actually, I'm presenting the example based on that online learning thing that we did at Purdue. But my next question is, have you shared the experience with others? You design something, you implement that, you evaluate that, and you redesign that, re-implement that, re-evaluate that, and you have some sort of experience through these refinement practices. But have you shared that with others? Maybe you shared that with your colleagues, but have you shared that with your greater professional community? No.
Only
to your close colleagues, maybe your departmental colleagues. So how would sharing have benefited the community? It will probably give them some ideas from your experience. If they need to design similar interventions, they can get help from you through that. And your benefit is you can publish research based on that. And I'm going to discuss that research practice that will help you publish this kind of research practices, design-based research. You are doing these things all the day, all the year, but probably many of you didn't think of publishing them yet. So this is design-based research which I'm going to present. So what is DBR? So this is a long definition, that's why I have bolded some phrases here, and I'm going one by one to explain this. Design-based research is a systematic but flexible methodology aimed to improve educational practices through iterative analysis, design, development, and implementation based on collaboration among researchers and practitioners in real-world settings and leading to contextually sensitive design principles and theories. Let me go one by one. So it's a systematic but flexible methodology. What does it mean? It has a plan at the beginning, but you can change the plan. At some point, probably you see that something is not working. Your students are not motivated enough. It's flexible to change the design at any point, because you are continually refining it. You are exploring what design will work better. Then it's an iterative analysis, design, development, and implementation. So iterative means you can continually refine it. When you get some feedback, you can refine it. You can refine the design, you can refine the development, you can define the implementation. Based on collaboration among researchers and practitioners. As a researcher, you continuously collaborate with practitioners, maybe with the faculty, maybe with teachers, maybe with your students, maybe with parents, to understand the phenomenon better so that you can do the design better in real-world settings. It cannot be in a laboratory setting. Design-based research is in the real world. In your classroom, if it is classroom-based research, if it is other areas than where all these components happen in real world. And it leads to contextually sensitive design principles and theories. It starts with the principle, it starts with the theory, and at the end it gives you a theory. Because your experience, your exploration will give you many ideas through which you can refine the earlier theory that you started with. And that theory will help other practitioners to design their intervention better. So it starts with the theory, it's grounded in theory, and it ends with the theory. Basically, all the innovations that you can see in the world are based on this design theory, this continuous refinement cycle. It's high time we bring this back to education as well, so that we have continuous refinement of educational practices. So there are a lot of DBR frameworks that are in the literature. So this is one of the frameworks. Like, you have a problem, then you utilize theory to understand the problem or solve the problem. You have a context, then you go through this continuous refinement cycle, analysis and exploration, design and construction, evaluation and reflection. You continue the cycle until the point when you're satisfied with the outcome. When you think that, well, this product is probably serving my students better, this product is probably serving my target audience better, and then you stop at that point, and then there's the project end. But until that point, you are continuously refining your practices. This is another framework. Basically, the principles are the same. You start with the analysis of practical problems by researchers and practitioners in collaboration, and then you develop solutions informed by existing design principles and technological innovation. So theories have to inform your initial design. Of course, at the end, you may come up with a new theory or new practice, new principle, but it has to be initially guided by an established theory or principle. And then you do these iterative cycles of testing, refinement, and solutions in practice, and then you reflect to produce design principles and enhance solution implementation. And you can see the back arrow that clearly shows that it's iterative. You can go back to any part at any point in time to refine different steps and then come to a better design at the end. So this is another framework. So principles are the same: analysis, design, evaluation, you match your intervention, and then you come up with a better product. And this is also same: analysis and exploration, design and construction, evaluation and reflection. And this cycle continues until you come to a point when you are fully satisfied with your product. So what are the characteristics of DBR? I will go into a specific example just after 1 or 2 slides. So before that, I just want to discuss the characteristics of DBR. First one is pragmatic. So it deals with a real problem. It cannot be an imaginary problem or a problem that you're envisioning. It has to be in a real context. And it takes a theory as long as a theory can offer something to your particular intervention. It doesn't just take theory for theory's sake. Theory should have a practical implication or something to give you to that intervention. It's grounded, so it starts with a theory. Everything that you do is theory-based, theory-guided. It's interactive. You constantly collaborate with your practitioners, with teachers, with students, with parents and other stakeholders as you see fit based on your context. It's iterative. You do the refinement cycle. It's flexible. You can change the design anytime for the betterment of the design. It's integrated. It's not only quantitative or qualitative. You can combine different methodologies. If you think ethnographic study, ethnographic analysis is better, you can be an ethnographer. If you think that quantitative data will help you better, it can be quantitative, it can be qualitative, it can be any research design that you can think of. And then it's contextual. It has to be based on a context, higher education, maybe political science, maybe communication, maybe marketing. It has to be based on a context. So the principles of DBR, I'll go through this slides quickly. So it's support design with research from the outset. As I have told you, that it starts with a theory. It set practical goals for theory development and develop an initial plan. So the design research serves the dual purpose of refining practices and theories. It ends with the theory. It conducts research in representative real-world settings, so not in the laboratory. It collaborates closely with participants. It implements research methods systematically and purposefully. Analyze data immediately, continuously, and retrospectively. When you are on the spot, you collect data, you observe what goes right and what goes wrong. You do it continuously until you finish the intervention. And you do it retrospectively. You reflect on your experience and you come up with a design principle. And you refine designs continually. You document contextual influences with design principles. You document the whole process, and you validate the generalizability of the design. So all the research that we are doing are to inform practices, and we think that it will probably be applicable to similar contexts. So whatever design principles you come up with, you validate that with applying that in another context to see if it has some sort of generalizability. So I promise that I will give you an example. So this is something that we did at Purdue University, and many of you are familiar with our Purdue Writing Lab, Purdue OWL, which we say is followed worldwide. So we have a similar initiative called Portal, Purdue Online Learning Repository, the short name. So these are the scenario that we were given. The university administration feels that faculty and graduate students are not adequately trained to teach online. It also applies to experienced faculty who have years of teaching experience but have minimal online teaching experience. And we all saw that during COVID, right? Faculty were not trained enough, even they have wealth of teaching experience before, they are highly experienced, but they didn't teach online, so you cannot even blame them. What you can do is to train them so that they can teach better. So the administration assigns this responsibility to the university's Learning, Design and Technology program, that's our program, to come up with an intervention as their area is online learning. So what we did and how did we do the DBR and what was our final outcome, I'm going to show that to you so that you have a better idea of what DBR is. So research questions for DBR. For that particular project, our research question was like that: how to train faculty and graduate students to teach online effectively in higher education. So that training faculty and graduate students is the theory part, because you need to think about your students. Your students are not undergrad students or master students, they're adult students. So you have to think about andragogy, like adult learning principles. You need to think about how you can do the needs assessment for those audience. And then teaching online effectively is the practical part, and that's how these two, theory and practice, land. And higher education is the context where you want to design that intervention. And there are some sample research questions I have given below so that during group work you can have some ideas, but this is not related to our original project. Like, how can instructors raise motivation for students to speak in English more outside of their English classroom at the university level? Or how can instructional designers ensure social justice in all course curricula to be role models for others at the university level? Of course, this is an exhaustive list. You can basically think of any problem in your educational project as DBR, or to use DBR as your research methodology. So this is the project that I was talking about, Purdue Repository for Online Teaching and Learning. Let me show you a glimpse of that website. So this is the final outcome. So faculty and grad students were not adequately trained. So what did we do as a solution? I think it's opening. So through a needs assessment, we found that they really do not have time. Faculty and grad students are really busy. So we cannot really design a training program for them because they don't have time and they don't have the motivation. So what did we do? We did this, we built this portal where, okay, I think it will come up, yes. So we designed these 2-page resources. All of these resources are 2-pagers.
So it's basically self-learning, self-teaching.
It's self-learning, yes.
You don't make a sort of organized sessions.
It's not like organized traditional classroom style training.
Online, but it is sort of, it is, how do you call it, well, people don't have to participate at a given time to this program,
Yes.
but they can do it at their own time, at their own pace.
At their own pace. Yeah. Through our needs analysis, we found that they really do not have time and they don't have the motivation. And it happened before COVID, so it didn't even force them to teach online. So at that time, there was a lack of motivation to teach online too. So we need to take into account all these factors. So this is, it will come
Because
out.
you know what, we have received ourselves a kind of obligatory program online, and sort of we were in online classes, and we received a 1 week program for online.
1 week training program
Training.
for this. Was that before COVID or during
No,
COVID?
during the COVID.
During COVID, yeah.
We were called by the COVID, so we had to do something, and
Yes.
the university organized this.
Şu an iyice tam getirdim.
Oh, that will have a better luck. It comes up. Should we try? Okay, maybe we can try it next time if it doesn't work. Okay, so all of these are 2 pages. If I open one, let me show you the topic. Like, we have divided these topics into different criteria, like strategies for online teaching and learning, then getting started, thinking about your course design, you see the topics underneath that, policies and procedures. So there are 4 criteria, and if I just show you just one resources, like actually every resource has the same format. So this is a 2-page resource, you can see. This has several parts, like what is it, and all of them are research based, you can see those citations. Why is it important? How to do it, so there are some practical tips on how you can ensure authentic learning in your online course. And then additional resources, and of course references. So it's research based, but it's very short, so that if somebody wants to learn more about that, they can just take a look, they can read at their own time, and they can get an idea. And they can also contact us anytime. So how did we do DBR on that? So this is the final outcome, but how did we start? Let me show you our original research paper so that you can get an idea of how we can design a DBR study. So this is our paper, which has just been accepted in a high impact journal, and we had minor revisions, so we just resubmitted, and this should be published very soon. And I will share the link with you when it's published so that you can have the copy. So the title of the research paper is The Process of Developing a Digital Repository for Online Teaching Using Design-Based Research. If I read the abstract, the Panon repository, so Panon is we had to anonymize Purdue because of journal. So the Purdue repository for online teaching and learning was developed as an open educational resource for graduate students and faculty in higher education settings to enhance their online teaching skills and strategies. So that was our purpose. So we were dealing with a real world problem, and that made it pragmatic. Remember the principles of DBR. And the portal team used a design-based research approach. In this study context, we used Ventium et al.'s 2012 model to identify problems faced by instructors who struggled with or were new to online teaching from a human performance technology standpoint. So that was our theory. As I told you that it started with a theory, so we started with this model. That model helped us to identify the problems faced by instructors and graduate students. So to address the identified needs, we created resources for online teaching and embedded our research within practical activities to further study our design process. So that was our outcome, that was our intervention. What solution did we come up with? And then our efforts resulted in an HPT OER model for designing digital repositories. We started with that Ventium's theory, but we ended with a new framework specifically for this kind of portal development so that other practitioners can follow that if they need to design similar interventions. So they will get some ideas from our intervention. So I'm going to show you these 2 models. So we started with this model. Let me enlarge it so that you can. So this is a widely used framework in business and corporate work to identify performance gap. So we thought that the fact that the faculty and the instructors don't know how to teach online effectively is a performance problem. And we related that with this gap, and we selected this framework as our initial theory. So we did an organizational analysis, we did an environmental analysis, and then we came up with the desired performance. Desired performance is faculty and instructors should teach online effectively, but actual performance is they do not. So there is a gap, and we did that gap analysis. And from that gap analysis, we came to the cause analysis. When you know the cause better, you can actually design the intervention better because you know the reasons. So we did an environmental factor analysis, we did individual factors, like maybe the organization is willing to help them, but they do not want to change. So those are individual factors. So we took into account both, and then we designed the intervention. So our intervention was a learning intervention, and then we made a plan on intervention, implementation, and maintenance. And you can see, if you see the bottom, you see that evaluation is a part of all of these components. So you can do this evaluation anytime. That makes it iterative, that makes it continuous. So we had formative, summative, confirmative, and meta-evaluation. And then we came up with this model at the end that is specific to our portal development. Let me enlarge that for you. So we put specific factors related to our project here. We followed the model, but we put specific factors here: cause analysis, then what was our intervention, what was our techniques for maintenance, and then how did we do the formative evaluation, summative evaluation, confirmative evaluation, meta-evaluation. So it started with the framework, it ended with the framework, more specific framework. That is also one of the principles of DBR. It's theory drives you, and then you ultimately come up with another theory. So let me quickly show you the different parts of our research paper so that you can get an idea of what we did here. So it started with an introduction, of course, to set the stage. Then we gave a little bit background on the faculty practices and all that. And then we talked about design-based research, then human performance technology model that we used. We also used open educational resources principles. And then we show how these three models like DBR, HPT, and OER are aligned. Then we talk a little bit about our project. So these are our steps. I'm just going to briefly discuss this. Like needs analysis. How did we do the needs analysis? So we surveyed the faculty members, what were their needs, and from that the topics were determined for resources. And then we did the design and development, initial design and development. Topics were designed and developed as just-in-time resources, so that was the initial. And then we did an internal evaluation by the internal portal team. Based on that, we did the modification. And then we sent to the experts who were highly renowned in the field of online learning. They gave us feedback, both qualitative and quantitative. We did further modifications, because the iterative cycle of modification that I just told you. And then intervention, implementation, and evaluation. Then finally we implemented the intervention. And this evaluation cycle is still continuing since we are still doing it. And then we elaborated on each part of this iteration, needs analysis, in detail, what we actually did, what were our topics, and how did we do the design. I'm not going into detail for time's sake, but I just want to show you different parts of the paper. Then expert evaluation and modifications. We placed some quotes from the experts here. How did they help us refine the total design? Then intervention, implementation, and evaluation. And then finally our model, HPT OER model that we want to present to other practitioners. We had a discussion on that, and then we presented the model here that I just showed you. And then conclusions and lessons learned. So this is our overall DBR paper. So now if I go back to that slide, just show an example. Okay. Now probably you have a question that how is it different from traditional research or laboratory research? Let me see if I can enlarge this. I'm not sure if you can read the fonts, right? So small here. Okay, I can probably read it out. So predictive research versus design research. So through predictive, I'm meaning quantitative research here. So in a quantitative research, you first set a hypothesis based upon observations and or existing theories. And then you design an experiment to test the hypothesis. And then you probably refine theories based on your test results. And then the application of theory by practitioners. It doesn't happen always. Research doesn't always translate into practice, and that's why we need to bridge research and practice as much as possible. That's the unfortunate reality of our research, especially educational research. And what happens in a design-based research is analysis of practical problems by researchers and practitioners in collaboration. You do not have a hypothesis here. You directly start with in the real world, and you see the scenario holistically, and you continuously refine it. So, and then you develop solutions informed by existing design principles and technological innovations. Then there is that iterative cycles of testing and refinement of solutions in practice, and then you reflect to design, to formulate design principles and enhance solution implementation. Probably these differences will give you the idea better. Laboratory settings versus messy situations. In a traditional research, you try to control variables. You probably look at a few variables that you really want to explore. Maybe student outcomes, maybe students' perceptions on something. But in design-based research, you are not controlling any variable. You are looking at the whole scenario holistically to see what works and what doesn't work. And then in a traditional research, you are dealing with a single dependent variable. But in design-based research, you are dealing with multiple dependent variables. In traditional research, you control variables, and in design-based research, you characterize the situation. You try to make a profile. You try to formulate what may work in this scenario. And traditional research is fixed procedures. You cannot deviate from your methodology, your design plan, but it's flexible design revision. And social isolation versus social interaction. So in traditional research, you were completely isolated from the real. Sometimes you bring everything to the laboratory, you were constrained within the laboratory, but here it's in the real context. Testing hypothesis versus developing a profile, which I have already discussed. Experimenter versus co-participant design analysis. I don't want to say that one is better over the other. Both have their own purposes, both have their pros and cons. It depends on your goals and depends on your purpose, which research methodology you will ultimately select. How good are we with time? It's 45. Yeah, I think we can have a small group discussion, maybe pair work. So in your group, think of an educational problem that requires an intervention. So I have, in the parenthesis, I have given you specific principles that you need to think of when you design your interventions. It's contextual. An educational problem that you are currently facing. We have a lot of problems, I know, everywhere. Education is a complicated field. Utilizing the principles of DBR that I have just discussed, how will you design that intervention? So it has to be systematic but flexible. What theories may help you design? So what theories will you utilize here? How will you make the design grounded? Feel free to use some Google search or whatever. How is it going to solve the problem? How is it pragmatic? How will it address a real world problem? How are you going to implement this? Collaboration among researchers and practitioners in real world settings is the principle. How will you evaluate, re-implement and re-evaluate? So that's the iterative analysis, design, development and implementation. What findings do you foresee? So this is actually not a good question, but this is just for you to think about the findings, because If you foresee findings, you will not be you will not be a good researcher because you'll be biased. But I just put that question because so that you can think that there will be some findings at the end of DBR. How will you generalize findings? So contextually sensitive design principles and theories. And how will you present it? DBA research paper, of course, through a DBA research paper. And what will be your research question for the DBA paper? I know these are a lot of questions. I just want you to work with the person next to you, probably for the next 7 or 8 minutes, and then probably we can hear together from one or two of you what you came up with, and then we can learn from each other. Okay? So just please work with the person next to you on an educational problem, and how will you design an intervention to solve the problem? How will you make it grounded? And how will you make the whole DBA process work through your intervention? 7 minutes starts from now. Feel free to ask me any question, I'll move around. You can make a group as well. It doesn't have to be a pair.
Eğitimli olması lazım.
Eğitim dizaynı.
Benim en büyük problemim şu anda
Üniversite seviyesinde düşünüyoruz.
Pandemi de zaten hiç bir şey yok.
Öyle mi?
Bizim matematiğe 70 üstünden 50-55 kişi katılıyor. Her bir şeyden paylaşıyor, üniversite sisteminden sonra sizin işte onların hepsini nasıl cezaevinde bırakıyorsunuz? Tabii şimdi dezavantaj olarak size geliyor. Nasıl sonra bilmiyoruz. Ama doğru, güzel bir şey aslında. Su ihtimal yani dersek yer Aralıklarla nasıl çözeceğiz? Güzel bir nasıl çözeceğiz?
We will request to send to represent all the
Biz fiziksel çok yazıyoruz.
Yani şey yaparsa çok Onlar falan onlar yani mesela işte benimle alıyor, videoları izliyor, YouTube kanalı. Tamamını var. Yani dezavantajları ama yani ben sonunda gelip notunu alsınlar. Otomatik öyle de bir şey şey kanalımız var. İşte Telegram ve WhatsApp kanallarımız var. İstedikleri yeni motivasyon şarttaki bulunduğunda bir şey çok kısa sürede görüyor. Hatta süresi evet, işte yeni bir şey. Yani bu aynı şekilde dersler 60-50 dakika ders falan. Yani yeni bir her şey böyle hap gibi almak istediğim şey var. Evet yani maksimum yani bunlar nasıl çözülür? Tabii düşünmek lazım. Mesela environmental factor bu şey yapmak lazım. Mesela TikTok'un çok popüler olması anlı yani. Kısa bir yani. Her şey kısa artık yani. Yapacağız 5 dakika. Her şey videoyu bile 2 dakika izlemiyorlar yani. Onu da izliyorlar. O bile çok bence şu anda. 30 saniye falan. Yani genel bir şey. Yani düşünsenize 100 yıllık çok uzun süresi düşünülmeye başladı. Yeni zaman 90'lara mesela şey yapalım hocam. Dersleri çok memnun oluyor. 10 yere yapsın. Aynen. Onu yazmak çok seviyorum.
Zaten yapmışlar.
Motivasyon.
We can take 2 more minutes and then we will present.
Evet, kaçırma ekstra puan verilir mi? Başka bir şey.
Hocam burada intervention
Grup çalışması yaptılar. Böyle bir şey yapmak yani biraz kendilerinin katılması lazım. Onların mesela uygulama derslerinde aslında bazı yerlerinde çalışıyorlar. Ben ilişki yolunda verildi ama yani çocuklara hani ücret verecek halimiz yok gelsinler diye ama başka bir şeyler motive edici de bir şeyler olması lazım. Mesela çok yani. Ders süresi kısa mı? Medya 30 dakika. Evet, yani bir sürü şey var tabii.
Sınavları yüksek almayı
Şeyde yani bir de şeyde yapmak lazım. Mesela sporlara çok önemli proje. Onlardan biri kendimiz de bir araya gelmiyoruz. Kendi feedbackimizi şey yapmak ve çocuklardan da feedback almak. Hem sınav içinde yani dolaylı oluyor, bir de doğrudan yani hem öğrencilerine hem de bir şekilde insanların şey yapmaları lazım. Feedbackleri verebilmeleri lazım. Tabii o kesin zaten. Sadece işte bu şey o iyice çözüyor. Ne diyorsun?
Evet, bölümler, işlemler, programlar.
politika nasıl seviyor?
Okay, I know that we are having exciting discussions, but let's stop at some point like DBR. We cannot have continuous refinement. So, which group is willing to present first? Like super excited to present their problems and solutions?
Well, we are.
Okay, great.
We are because this problem is really burning us.
Okay, great. That's what I want.
Yeah, it is the absentees.
Student absentees.
Student absentees
Okay.
in classes, especially after the midterms. Well, I have about 400 students in maths, and we have terminated the classes, but the last classes were, the participation was about 5 to 10 or something. So this is a big problem for all colleagues, I guess, because I have got feedbacks from other colleagues, and nobody said no anyway. So this is a common problem, at least in our faculty.
Yes.
This is what I know. So the main issue here is the motivation, or demotivation of the students. So what we have to do, our aim should be to increase the presence with by increasing the students' motivation. So what can we do for this? This is the main problem. My colleague has he just mentioned that the new generation has so little passions that they are much more sort of, they deal much more with these small videos on the internet. What was this program?
TikTok.
Oh, TikTok.
Yeah.
They are much more interested in TikTok than the classes.
Attention span has decreased.
Indeed, and even that in soccer games, they think, I mean, the soccer associations, they think about shortening the playing periods from 90 minutes to, I don't know, 60 minutes or so, because there is a general lack in concentration. Well, this is an issue, it seems.
Yeah.
So we have discussed and we have come up with some problems, some solutions. Well, one immediate thing can be to shorten the class time from 40 to 50 minutes to 30 minutes perhaps, to try whether it works or not. And then to give some bonus points, some extra points to those who participate actively.
To increase motivation.
And in small classes it is much more practical, and I know that some colleagues do it. It can be a good sort of solution as well. To make some group work, instead of making a sort of just lecture-based, but especially for practical courses, it might be more interesting to make some group works, to assign projects to groups, and then to get the results afterwards. And this can be a good feedback mechanism as well.
Yeah.
Besides, yes, we need, I mean, the pandemics has also decreased our own feedbacks. Before the pandemics, we used to make some reunions, some faculty boards and these kinds of sort of meetings. But nowadays, it's almost cancelled, all these meetings, and we don't get, I mean, almost the only feedback we get from each other is, at the corridors or, just washing our hands, the small chats when we meet each other, that's all.
Yeah.
So we need some regular and official feedback mechanism among colleagues and with the students as well. This is something which we definitely.
Yeah.
This is more or less this, but one thing is sure, we have to design, we have to find and implement measures for motivating the students.
Yeah, a very timely intervention, thank you. But I have a question for you.
Yeah.
When you think of increasing students' motivation, did you think of any theory to apply here? Since DBR is theory-driven.
Yes, but the problem is that we are not education specialists, we are economists.
It's okay, I mean, you are thinking of doing
so
that,
we
so
are
now you can explore
these educational theories.
Like that. For example,
we have all heard of Piaget, for instance,
Yeah.
but we don't follow very much the current research on education. So
now it's time to dig deeper into those theories. Like there are two kinds of motivation, intrinsic and extrinsic.
Yes.
The bonus points that you wanted to give to students are part of extrinsic motivation. So probably they will be extrinsically motivated, but that will not intrinsically motivate them. How will you bring more intrinsic motivation to students so that they don't need extra points? They will do it for their future. So that's probably another dimension that probably your PBR will give you.
We have thought of some other measure, but I don't know whether we can do it. Somebody can do it, I guess, but whether we can do it or not, I don't know. But well, I should suggest that we retire all and we make sort of small computer games to give classes, to give lessons to students, because they will be much more motivated.
Now it's emerging.
to play these
Gamification,
games.
game-based learning is another area that is really emerging. Thank you so much. Can you give a round of applause for this?
Of course.
So, which group wants to present next? We are running out of time, I know. At least want to hear from another group. Yes.
We thought that as a contextual problem, we would like to put, there is a need for interaction, there is a need for developing interaction between students and teachers in classrooms, our problematic area. And we put interaction as a principle. And we have found a theory as a ground of self-actualization in education.
Self-actualization, great.
Starting point for our theory. And we would like, as a pragmatic, we would like to increase, develop the interaction between the teachers and students. For instance, and how we evaluate, we would like to make face-to-face and questionnaires in midterm and exams in different time periods. We would like to make evaluation like that. And so for the findings, we would like, we hope that we can, using that applications, we would like to develop the interactions at the end of the course time period.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. And you already thought about the theory, so that's good. You started with the theory, and then your theory will change at the end based on your experience. Thank you so much. For time's sake, I think I just want to hear the problem and the solution that you developed from other groups. Can you hear from your group? Just the problem and the solution.
Well, we did not discuss that much because we were all working together already.
Yeah.
So we are aware of the problems, and the problems are probably the same. The absentees of the students are the big problem as well, and they're not motivated. They're motivated because of the culture. This is what we believe, because of what that they can't see what's going to happen in the future. This is the main problem of our students, we believe. And well, we already talked about the interactivity, and we also think that the undergraduate students and graduate students are different. It is really easy to get interaction with the graduate students. It's okay, so we also already believe this is easier to interact. But in undergraduate students, it is really hard to interact because they don't really want to participate to anything.
Yeah.
So increasing interactivity will motivate them. Other than that, the only motivation we could find is the grade. So
just extrinsic motivation. So we discuss a lot about strengthening students' intrinsic motivation, and that's really challenging. Without grade, how we can make students interested in learning, just for learning. That's really tough, and I completely relate to you. What about?
And finally, we were also walking around the same problems with the other groups, and lack of concentration and lack of focusing to the classes was our main issue. And also this has been increased with the implementation of this digital technologies with the pandemic, especially with the online classes. We were searching for the theoretical part. I found some theories, so we noted, but we are not very much into them. But as a solution, like we proposed, we were considering to offer shorter class hours and to increase, especially the interaction with the students at the final part of the classes, to involve them more in the classes.
Yeah.
Maybe question and
yes.
answer method can be used.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. And for this shorter class, we are doing research on micro-learning. It's an emerging concept. You can check that out if you want to design lessons, like shorter lessons. There are some micro-learning frameworks, and especially for decreasing attention span of students, like how to design lessons in short bursts, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes. I think micro-learning can help you a lot. So I have put some resources here for you. I will share this slide link with the organizer so that they can share that with you. So there are some websites which will give you more ideas about DBR. A peer tutorial for design-based research web bibliography. And there are some journals which published special issues on design-based research. So you can probably take a look at their papers and get an idea. And then I have also put some foundational research on design-based research. These are all foundational articles which will give you a lot of ideas, especially the third one and fourth one. The third one is good for DBA research on course design. If you want to design similar intervention, you can take a look at that. And the fourth one is good for DBA research on curriculum refinement. I think curriculum is something that you all are interested in, or you have to do that as part of your teaching practices. So this is something that can help you. And these are also some foundational articles on DBR, so which you can check out. So feel free to reach out to me if you have any question later also. Like if you have any question, you can ask me now as well. So I'm opening up for questions.
Well, thank you very much. It was quite enlightening. Could you also explain a little more this intrinsic motivation? Obviously we are all aware of the extrinsic methods, but what are the intrinsic?
Intrinsic is when your students are self-motivated. For example, they don't need grades. Like they don't want to study for earning grades. They want to study to learn. So when your students possess this kind of behaviors, then you can tell that your students are intrinsically motivated, and we want these behaviors to be developed in our students, because grades do not always translate into learning, right? Not always, because you want your students to be self-motivated, like they want to develop themselves, like they want to implement that in real world, so real world learning. So not only grades. So that's more intrinsic. There are several theories on intrinsic motivation. You can check them out in the literature, and also extrinsic motivation. But our goal should be to build intrinsic motivation in our students so that they can learn by themselves. Any other question? So how many DBR papers can I expect from this group in 2 years?
Not very much, I guess. Just one kind of question. Your program, is it part of the education science faculty?
Yes, we are part of College of Education.
Right.
But we are also under technology, since my subject is education and technology.
I see.
So we combine, it's very multidisciplinary. So we work with even nursing department, pharmacy department, pharmaceutical. So in every department we have some sort of application, because learning design. So you can basically design learning for any faculty or any department.
Will you be visiting Middle East Technical University as well?
No, this is the only university that is visiting this time. But I would love to later on.
Here we have an education science faculty just in this campus.
Oh, okay.
But at the Middle East Technical University, there is also a special department in the India education faculty. There is a special department for education technologies.
Yeah.
So they might be.
Then they will be
interested, and you can collaborate.
Yeah, I'm collaborating with one of the professors from. Is there an Atatürk University somewhere?
Yes.
I think she is there. She actually did her postdoc at Purdue, and then we did a research paper, and that was also accepted in a journal. That's an online learning too. Yes, please.
What do you think for the prospect for online teaching? It's going to replace the classical teaching for the future. Maybe in just very short time period, maybe in a few years, there will be things change.
Yeah. I would say that it's not going to replace, but it's surely going to misplace the traditional teaching, because since the COVID made that paradigm shift, there was also a lot of promotion on online learning before, but people were not forced to do that. Now that people were forced, now that they had to learn that, and they saw the benefits of online learning, so they will continue practicing it. So I think the blended learning or the high flex learning will be the new norm, where you combine both traditional and online learning methods, because each has its pros and cons, right? So our goal has to take benefits of each through blending these two kinds of methods in our teaching practices. So I think that blended learning will be the new norm for our education. So, but it's not going to replace the traditional system, because the face-to-face interaction has a different kind of value. We'll have different kind of value for this.
Okay, so thank you very much. I take this opportunity, sorry, we have to be still very careful. I take this opportunity to thank the Vice Dean for his kind presence, along with all of you who are already practitioners. Most of you are. Some are still doing their PhD. And thank you for introducing everyone. It's a great honor and privilege, because Ankara University is so well known all around the world, not only in Turkey. It is a historic place of learning. And when he requested me that where should I go in Turkey, I said, since the capital is Ankara, you will come to Ankara University and we'll try to help you. Thank you for organizing it. I have to thank the International Department, and through you, the Honorable Rector, for organizing at a short notice, because he is still himself in the learning process. Inshallah, next year he will also complete that. And this is a new thing for many of us, because we all suffered the challenges of pandemic. And it actually had a change in your mindset. Not only the physical impact, it had the mental impact as well. And it will have a permanent dent. He just mentioned. It will have a permanent dent. There will be a lot of blending, a lot of blended outcome, as he mentioned. There will be new coinage of new, words, which will, in future, you will do PhD on that. But there is no escape. We have to, adjust with the need of the day, with the younger generation's demand. And as you just discussed, 30 minutes class. When I was thinking, when I was young at the university, why isn't it sometimes 1.5 hours? Double. Why? Because the teacher was very attractive. Yeah, her presentation or his presentation was excellent. But nowadays, you have already discussed, many people don't have that span of, concentration. So, but thank you very much, Mr. Vice Dean, and all of you for being present here and helping one of the younger generation person to share his ideas with all of you, who is basically from Bangladesh, but now he is in the USA in a very well-known university. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, His Excellency, to make this happen and introducing Shamsul Duha to us. Thank you very much.
Yeah, just for your information, in the past, we had one of our national professors actually working 2 tenures in Bosphorus, Istanbul Bosphorus University. She is no more now. She is my friend's mother, National Professor Sufi Ahmed. So actually I thought we should encourage, not only all the time based in Istanbul, all over the good universities you have all over Turkey, and bring more of different ages, people with good thought process and who are in education and research, so that there is a real interaction between the intellectuals of Turkey and Bangladesh. You all know we are very close friends. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, yes, that's the thing. Because today is Juma, we have to run now.
Even I'm an economist, I